This is KK6 Foxtrot Uniform Tango with another ham radio project. Today, what I have is a probably something you've never seen before, which is a transmitter built out of a toaster. Now, I don't know about you, but toasters are not very reliable in my household. And we had a toaster, and I'm going to pop a picture of that up on the screen, hopefully, if I can edit it correctly, which went out a few weeks ago. And as you know, there's little burners in there, and eventually at some point they stopped working. So before I tossed that in the e-waste pile, I pulled it apart, and here's some of the parts that you can see from the inside of the toaster, and also the toaster itself. And I said, hey, let's build a ham radio out of it. So lo and behold, it's a couple weeks later, and I have built a 80-meter transmitter out of the toaster, believe it or not. So what we have here, just so you can see, is we've actually got, I used a battery, a 12-volt battery, just for convenience. And there was there's a board here, which is the power supply board and some relays that I'm using for the power supply. It actually turns out there's a couple of power ICs on there. There's here the black is the lead actually connected to the common of a 7812, which as most people know converts whatever voltage to 12 volts. There's actually a 7805 here for 5 volts for the IC. And I figured out where to put the power and ground connections. This is the original connector board for the toaster, and used to be you could press a button and have it toast. Instead, what I have is there's a button here, and I'll flip that over here. The button here, which is normally the button that you'd start your toast with. You know, you press the button and set your different settings on the toaster, and that I've turned into my CW key. So when you press that, it transmits. So what I did is actually pretty simple. Steer this direction. Is there's a microprocessor. Who knows what it does on this toaster? Sets all the timing and turns on and off relays. And instead of the normal 8 megahertz CPU clock on there, I jammed a you can hear it transmit here. That is a ham band crystal for 80 meters on QRP calling frequency. And there's a lot of stuff on here I'm not using. And then this is actually pretty simple. It's taking the output of that goes to this thing. And so to make this legal on ham bands, you got to have a low pass filter. Well, clearly there was not any inductors or appropriate size capacitors on this board, so I built some, and they are built out of this is all stuff that was found within a foot of the original toaster in the kitchen. And you'll see this is a part of there's a paper towel roll, emptied off, of course. This wire is actually from the toaster. So in the toaster it went from 120 volts to 12 volt. There's a transformer, and if you figure out how to pry it apart, there's miles and miles and miles of wire there. This blue, all the blue and the red are various bits of wire from the toaster. I cheated a little bit. This is a little bit of yellow wire just I was using for patching, but you could have pulled that off from the toaster as well. You could also use a magnet wire, but I didn't want to bother stripping that. So anyway, this is the low pass filter. This is an 820 picofarad capacitor made out of aluminum foil and Saran wrap. So if you run the calculator and put it all together, you're supposed to get a certain capacitance, and didn't work for me. So I ended up taking it and folding it and using a capacitor meter to make sure that it was 820 picofarads. And this one's also another 820 picofarad capacitor. And there's an inductor here, which is 1.2 microhenries, and if you run it through the calculator, it says 6 turns on this size of a air gap, and there's a little paper in the way, so that may change the inductance a little bit, but good enough. So out on this end is legal ham band low pass filtered signal. Um, I'm hoping to turn this into a transceiver by making a receiver, and there's a couple interesting components here that I haven't quite figured out how to use yet. One is there's a piezoelectric buzzer on here, which is essentially a speaker. Bunch of pots if I needed them. They're all 10K pots. And there are three, well actually, there's four transistors you can use. One of them I bollocksed up. The other one I was trying to use as an amplifier for the transmitter, but haven't figured out what's going on there yet, but work on that. And there's also an LED. So, and this LED actually you can flash Morse code on it if you wanted. I had that hooked up over here earlier, but I haven't figured out how to have both the signal and the LED on there quite yet. So anyway, there you go. And that's over there. It looks like 3.579 is where it's showing up as on the handbands at this moment. So you can pound out to CW, and it's putting about 1.9 volts of signal out, which it's like I think 9 milliwatts. So not very much, but someone across the street could probably hear me. And plus I'm using the, and it's not a real efficient antenna, it's just the magnet wire from that transformer off the toaster. So there you go. I'm calling this the 80 meter toasted toaster transmitter. The 80 meter toasted toaster transmitter. This is KK6 Fox, starting from Tego.